Alright, I want to get to the Micah prophecy, but I wanted to point something out in Hosea 12:10. I'll start in 12:9. I, Yahweh, your Elohim, since the land of Egypt, will again make you live in tents, as in the days of the festivals of tabernacles. I have also spoken through prophets, and I have multiplied visions, and by the hands of the prophets used parables. Okay, I want to point some out in Genesis involving parables before I get on to Micah. So, Genesis 35. So, this is when that messenger appeared to Jacob in Paddan Aram. In verse 10, and Elohim said to him, your name is Jacob, and your name shall no more be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. And Elohim said to him, I am El Shaddai, be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations will come from you, and kings will come out of your loins. And the land that I promised to give to Abraham and Isaac I will give to you, and to your seed after you I will give the land. Now, if you read all the different times with like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or stuff involving the covenant and with Yahweh involved and Elohim, you'll see that they kind of add another layer to it each time. And so he's telling them right now, so a nation and a company of nations will come from you. Same thing here. So that was the keys to the kingdom. This one's a Young's literal translation. But it says, and God said to him, I am God Almighty. That's that El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and an assembly of nations will come from thee, and kings will come out from thy loins. So you got kings coming out, nation and an assembly of nations. So a nation and multitude of nations, the company. In Genesis 48:19, and his father refused, and he said, I know, my son, I know he will become a people, and he will be eminent, but truly his younger brother will be more eminent than him, and his seed will become a multitude of nations. That's how Keys of the Kingdom has it. Now the Young's literal translation here. And his young brother is greater than he, and his seed is the fullness of the nations. See, Young's literal translation gets it right. Fullness of the nations. I think there's, I don't know if it's a little bias or thinking that it's harmonizing by it being multitude of the nations in Genesis 35, but the prophet speaks in parables. This is the word for fullness, and I will show you. So let's show you the parable then of Genesis 48. You see how that should be fullness. So, and Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and he blessed me. Remember we read that in Genesis 35. That goes back to a previous chapter where he wrestled with the messenger, and he asked him to bless him, and then he gave him this blessing. He said to me, mark this, I will make you fruitful, multiply you, and make you a company of peoples. So, a nation and a multitude of nations will come out. And so, but the thing is, even when you lead into chapter 49, he's saying, Jacob called the sons and says, gather yourselves together so I can tell you what will befall you in the last days. He's speaking in parables too. He's pretty much like a prophet himself, speaking the word of Yah, and he's just not, given credit as one, for writing or anything. But here we go. And I will give this land to you, to your seed after you, for an enduring possession. So yeah, just like we read in 35. And now your two sons, remember how it said too, and kings will come out of your loins? In that Genesis 35. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you into Egypt, They are mine. Like Reuben and Simeon, they will be mine. You think he's speaking Yahweh's words? I've shown this in other videos too, where in Jeremiah 36, how he was speaking, and it ends up telling you that, he's speaking the word of Yahweh when you understand it, because he had that guy write down his words, and it said he wrote down the words of Yahweh, but then it also told you he wrote down the words of Jeremiah. And like Jesus says, how he's speaking the Father's word. Prophets did that too. And Hebrews 1 begins, in times past, God spoke through the prophets, and these days spoken through his son. I paraphrase that, and your children whom you father after them will be yours. They, speaking on Ephraim and Manasseh, shall be called after the name of their brothers in their inheritance. The brothers in their inheritance is going to be those multitude of peoples. Guess what? We know they became Christians. So Ephraim and Manasseh being called after that name Christians, they are called Christ. Those kings and messiahs are coming from Ephraim, Manasseh. And the parable in this is, because we've learned, if you've watched other videos of mine, that King David, he is of the tribe of Ephraim, and yet the one that comes first, because this birthright that comes up later, Ephraim gets the birthright, but Joseph's like, not so, this one's the firstborn, because Manasseh came first. So the parable in it that the messiahs, the two kings here, they're going to come out, from the house of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. So one's going to come first, and then the other one second. They got split into, two tribes, but they are both of Joseph. So, and as for me, when I came from Paddan Aram, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the journey, when there was still only a short way to Ephratah. And I buried her there in the way of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And it's only a short way. And that's also mentioned in, I think, Genesis 35 too. Ephrath being a short way from Bethlehem. My bad. I worded that funny. Because Ephrath is a short way from Bethel, and Ephrath is Bethlehem. And I'll just kind of go over to that just to read it, just so I don't get it right. Yeah. See, Rachel died and she was buried on the road to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. So Ephrath is Bethlehem. And they were in Bethel, and they traveled from Bethel, and there was still a short way to travel to Ephrath, which you could say, and they traveled from Bethel, and there was still a short way to travel to Bethlehem. They're right by each other. Now, if you were to read 1 Chronicles 7, like, it's speaking of the sons of Ephraim, and see, in the sons of Ephraim, verse 20, and you get down here, like verse 27, his son Nun, and his son, should say Joshua. It's another place where he gets it wrong in the translation. It's a word for Joshua. You can even read the book of Joshua. It's the son of Nun, is Joshua. And their possessions and habitations were Bethel and its towns. And you get down here, and by the borders of the sons of Manasseh, and Bethshean and its villages, and Tenach and its villages, and Judah its towns and its villages. So in these, the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. So in these lived the sons of Joseph, the sons of Israel. So in Bethel and its towns, remember, Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, was a short walk from Bethel. So you think Bethel and its towns, like Bethlehem, and in there was where the sons of Joseph lived. All right, back in Genesis 48. So Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be Christ. And Joseph said to his father, "They are sons whom Elohim himself has given to me." And he said, "Please bring them to me." Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, so that he was not able to see. And he brought them near to him, and he kissed them, and he embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, "I have not thought to see your face, but look, Elohim has shown me your seed." And he's talking about that seed. He's talking to Joseph. He's talking about from the Ephraim and Manasseh. They're going to be called after the name of their brothers. Kings are going to come out of the loins, and that birthright blessing is on Ephraim and Manasseh. And so he's speaking about that Christ to come. Because if you get to Genesis 28, he was on that ladder with that dream, and in that dream, he he was on top of the ladder, and the messengers ascending and descending before him, and it was that seed. Because you get now here to Genesis 31, verse 11, and the angel or messenger of Elohim said to me in a dream, "Jacob," and I said, "Here I am." And he said, "Now lift your eyes and see that all the rams that leap on the livestock are ring-streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted. For I have seen everything Laban does to you. I am El of Bethel." And that's where he was in Jacob's ladder dream. He was in Bethel when he appeared to him, and he poured oil on that stone because it represented the Messiah. He said, "This is the house of Yahweh. This is where you anointed the pillar, where you made a solemn vow to me. Now rise up, go out of this land, and return to the land of your fathers." And I'll just kind of verify that in Genesis 28 for people who don't know. Because this is where he has that dream in Bethel, and he took one stone from among the stones and placed it for his pillow and lay down in this place to sleep. And because the sun went down, and then later when he wrestles with the angel or the messenger of Yahweh, the sun, rises and he goes away. So he said, "I am Yahweh Elohim of your father Abraham and Isaac." And so, and he's speaking to Jacob. He blesses him here, and Jacob woke up out of his sleep, and he said, "Surely Yahweh is in this place, and I was not aware." And he was frightened. He said, "How fearful is this place? It is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of the heavens." And Jacob rose up early in the morning. He took the stone that he had put for his pillow and set it up as a pillar, and he poured oil on it because it represented the Messiah and the house of Elohim. So that rock was a pillar, and they told you it was a pillar, and that, what we just read before this chapter. And he called the name of that place Bethel. So the name of that place had first been Luz. So he will surely give a tenth to you, but this rock I set for you will be a pillar. Will be set for a pillar, will become the house of Elohim. So there you go, that rock, that stone, it is going to become Elohim. He's telling you right there, that is the Messiah. Anything straying beyond what the word says there is a lie. Genesis 32, verse 24, and Jacob was alone, he wrestled with him until the rise, the dawn. See, the sun went down before, and then it rises here. There's more parables with that in different books, but I don't know if I'll get to that in this video. But so he wrestled with him, then he blessed him there, and he said, "I have seen Elohim face to face, yet my life is preserved." You know how he knows that? Because he saw him in the dream standing above the ladder. Then he had that other dream just before that, telling him, "I am the El Bethel." That's why he wrestled him. That's all he knew in Genesis 48. He's just given more revelation of stuff that was spoken to him in that when he wrestled with him, because he told you about the blessings he received in Genesis 35, about what happened in Genesis 32 when he wrestled with him, which wasn't spoken in Genesis 32, because there's things unspoken, and it's revealed in these parables throughout the word if you pay attention to the little details. "So I have not thought to see your face, but look, Elohim has shown me your seed." It's that stone, the rock. And it's Jacob speaking to him. And look, when Jacob tells him what will happen in the last days, he blesses all the tribes. Look what he says of Joseph. Joseph is a fruitful bow, a bow fruitful beside a well, like a branch. His branches overclimb a wall, but masters of arrows provoke and they shoot arrows and hate him. But his bow abides in agility, and the arms of his hands are made supple by the hands of the Ha-Havir Jacob from Raha, even of Israel. So from the mighty one of Jacob, from the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Isn't that Jesus the good shepherd? There's the stone of Israel. Ha-Havir, the mighty one, Jacob. Eben of Israel, the shepherd, or Raha is the shepherd, Eben, the stone of Israel. But we keep reading down in here, and he's going to put his hands on Ephraim and Manasseh after he's telling them about seeing his seed. And this is what this blessing is all about. The ones that's going to be named, after their brothers, the two kings. And he blessed Joseph, and he said, "May Elohim, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac and walked, Elohim himself, who fed me all my life long to this day," I should say the messenger who delivered me from every evil, exalt the boys, and let my name be named in them. Because see, when you understand that Genesis 28 correctly, and I've spoken about it in other videos, it's actually, he's showing him a dream from when the gathering happens, because it talks about Israel being spread to all the different corners and then being returned to the land. So he knows that one from the vision is the deliverer. So now this is that blessing part. And then when Joseph saw his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was wrong in his eyes, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. It's the same thing going on today too, because people don't really understand this blessing. They think that it's only Jesus, and when they hear about the other one, they're like, "No, that's wrong. This one came first. Jesus came first." And it's like what Joseph's doing, Manasseh came first, because Ephraim was the younger one. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." And his father refused, and he said, "I know, my son, I know. And he will become a people." Those people are going to be the Christians when they first get that name changed, because he's speaking of that Manasseh seed. Because remember how he mentioned, I seen your seed, and so talking about, the descendant to come, and he will be eminent, but truly his younger brother, the one that's going to come after with the, called after the name of their brother's Christ, he will be more eminent than him. And his seed, that is going to become the fullness of the nations. Remember, I already showed you that's the word for fullness. And he blessed them that day, and in you, Israel, will be a blessing, in your loins, in your belly, saying, "May Elohim make you as Ephraim and Manasseh." And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. See, knowing that should be fullness, and then, if you have the foundation in the Old Testament to know that there's two Christs, you can understand Paul here. Romans 11:25, "For I do not want you, brothers, to be ignorant of this mystery, so that you should not be wise within yourself, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the nations has come in." See, you're not going to know about this till that seed comes. He's going to tell you. "And so all Israel will be saved. As it has been written, the deliverer will come out of Zion." Remember him standing on Mount Zion, Revelation 14? So Zion being, Israel, the tribes. So that deliverer is going to come out of the belly, out of the loins, that seed. And he's that one, the woman with the child waiting to be birthed. "And he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob." And you can also, it could be translated as, and I kind of like this one better, "and he will remove ungodliness from Jacob," because he's that one that comes down, the rider on the white horse, that's gonna remove all the evil. "And this is a covenant from me to them, and I will take out of the way their sins." Now look, even these blessings, they're repeated again later. In Deuteronomy 33:13, and of Joseph he said, his land is blessed by Yahweh. Remember what that definition of that fullness? All therein, the fullness, filling everything. With the precious things of the skies, with the dew and the deep that lies beneath, and with the best of the produce of the sun, and with the best yield of the months, and with the first of the ancient mountains, and with the best of the age-old hills, with the best of the land, and its fullness. And his seed will be the fullness, and the favor of him who lived in the bush. Let it come on the head of Joseph, on the top of him who is set apart from his brothers. Set apart by God, when you can read holy in the Bible too, and that's what holy means, set apart by God. But like the firstborn of the bullock is his glory. A firstborn bullock, that one is a yoked animal destined to be slaughtered. And I believe that was Shore, and then Wild Ox is Rem. Sorry if I got that wrong. It would just be vice versa then. And the horns of the wild ox are his horns. Those wild oxens, like in aurochs back in the day, they're way bigger than a firstborn, cattle yoked rem, and they're free. Nobody puts a yoke on them. You're seeing a transformation here from one who's yoked and gonna be killed to look a resurrection. Those horns are like crowns. He's going to be a lot more powerful. And with them, he will gore the peoples to the ends of the earth. These are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and these are the thousands of Manasseh. And that kind of gives you the clue, too, because with the birthright, the Ephraim had the greater birthright. So you get 10,000s, and then you get thousands with Manasseh. So Deuteronomy 33:17, you see a death and resurrection prophecy, and there's that one that's going to be greater in it, but then you get the two in there and you make a connection with the prophecy of the two Christs coming from there. And obviously 10,000s is greater than 1,000. And here we go. Come, let us return to Yahweh, because remember Jesus went up to heaven, and this Ephraim's going to go up to heaven too after he dies, because he talks about the glory of Ephraim flying away like a bird. For he has torn, but he will heal us. He has struck us, but he will bind us. After 2 days he will revive us, and on the third day he will raise us, and we will live before his face. Because it's like the Ephraim is anointed one among the people. Cake not turn. That's a burnt offering. Hosea 9:11, the glory of Ephraim will fly away like a bird, no birth, no one with child, no conceiving. He's that woman with the child, with the dragon waiting to devour at the Revelation 12 sign. Him being planted in a pleasant place is up in heaven when he flies away up there. And bringing his sons out to the murderer, because see, he gets dominion. So Israel's, they are his sons then, but I will chastise them according to the report of their congregation. So from my playlist, we know, David being the tribe of Ephraim, and Yahweh declares to you, 2 Samuel 7:11, that he will make you a dynasty, speaking to David, and when your days are fulfilled and you rest with your fathers, you of the house of Joseph, I will establish after you your seed, who will proceed out of your loins. So he'll proceed out of his belly. Speaking to David, that seed. Think how they spoke of seeds in Genesis 48, and in your seed, fullness of the nations. And he's speaking about that first seed coming and being great, and they'd, would be a people. Those people are the Christians. That's that seed proceeding out of David's loins here. And I will establish his kingdom. He will become a people. And he will build a house for my name. Oh, how's he going to build that house? That house going to come out of his loins too? Out of his belly maybe? And I will establish the throne of his kingdom throughout the duration of the eon. See, you got that first one coming out, establishing Jesus' kingdom. And Jesus is going to build a house for his name. That house, is that stone. Remember he talked about that stone? And he poured the oil on it, made it a pillar, because he said, this is the house of Yahweh. From the shepherd, the stone of Israel. And I will establish the throne of his kingdom, of that stone, that house being built by him. And I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me, whom in his committed iniquity, Jesus never committed iniquity. This is talking about the stone of Israel here, the second one to come. And I will chase him with a rod of men, with the strokes of the sons of men, but my loving kindness will not depart from him. So now we're made it to Micah 5:1. Now gather yourself together, daughter of a troop. He has laid siege against us. They will strike the judge of Israel with a scepter on the cheek. But you, Bethlehem of Ephratah, it's a distinction, it's a different person here, being least among the thousands of Judah. Ephraim his tens of thousands, Manasseh his thousands. So this is that first one to come, being the least among the thousands of Judah. That's Jesus. What does he say to Jesus? Out of you will come for me one to become ruler in Israel. Out of your belly, out of your loins, you're building the house. That's that one, that judge that's going to get struck on the cheek. And his proceedings will be from of old time, from the days of the eon. Therefore he will give them up until the time she who is in labor gives birth. Then the remnant of his brothers will return to the sons of Israel. This one will stand and shepherd in the strength of Yahweh, in the majesty and the name of Yahweh his Elohim, and they will remain. For now he will be mighty to the ends of the earth. And this one will be for Shalom. When the Assyrian comes into the land, he will walk in our palaces. Then we will raise 7 shepherds and 8 anointed men, and they will devastate the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod at her gates. And so he will deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land, and he treads inside our borders. See, that messenger, the deliverer, who delivered me from all the evils. This is going back to that Genesis 28 prophecy. He poured the oil on the rock, because Israel is to be scattered and then gathered and returned to the land. And that one is the son of Jesus. Just like Jesus is the son of David. And he's still a son of David too, just later down the line. But he can also say he's the son of Jesus. Remember the Deuteronomy 33:17 passage? So we see, the death and resurrection, and, the Ephraim and Manasseh in there. Ephraim with the greater number. And, about how they mention of the seeds in Genesis 48. And so Isaiah 53. Everyone knows this passage well. Yet Yahweh proposed to bruise him. Speaking of Jesus and, him enduring his cross. And to put him into suffering, when you shall make his life an offering for sin. He, Jesus, will see his seed. That one out of you will become one to rule. Yeah, that's that one to come later. That will be greater. He will prolong his days, and the purpose of Yahweh will prosper in the land. Remember the beginning of the video, the prophets speak in parables. And though you be little among the thousands of Judah, so it's letting you know that Manasseh wanted to come first. So Matthew 2:5, and they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, and remember what I say, how those Judahites, how they're just all of Israel returned to that land, and Judah took over the land, and they end up just calling them all Judahites. I've spoken that in previous videos, like if you've read Ezra, like in the letters, they're writing about the people that built the temples, and they called them all Judahites. And the prophecy is Bethlehem Ephratah, which is where the sons of Joseph live. It's the one in the north. There wasn't a Bethlehem, Judah, back in the day in that land of Luz. In Bethel, that's in the north. And in Joshua 15, Judah didn't receive the town of Bethlehem. It was actually built by a descendant of King David. I'll check it. I'll go to it after this. But for it has been written through the agency of the prophet, and you, Bethlehem of Judah, are by no means least among the governmental towns of Judah. The thousands of Judah. He's the Manasseh, the first one to come. For out of you, Jesus, out of your belly will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. 2 Chronicles 11:3. Speak to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. So look, that's a grandson of King David. King David was already dead at this point. So now if you read in verse 5, right, and Rehoboam lived in Jerusalem, that's in the south, and he built towns for defense in Judah. He built Bethlehem. Look, that's where Bethlehem, Judah finally appeared after David was born. David was anointed and lived in Bethlehem of Ephratah, where the sons of Joseph lived. John 7:37. Now on the last day, the solemn day of the festival, Jesus stood up and called out, saying, If anybody is thirsty, let him come to me and let him drink. Whoever believes in me, just as the scroll has said of me, out of his inside will flow rivers of living waters. And you can read that in other ones too, where they say, out of his belly, out of his insides, out of his loins. You get it? But he spoke this referring to the Spirit which those believing in him were about to receive, because the Holy Spirit had not yet come, because Jesus had not yet become glorified. See, back to Genesis 48, he will become a people. He has to become that people first. The king, he's going to do his thing, get glorified, his death and resurrection. And then that one will come later. The Holy Spirit, the set-apart Spirit, Joseph set apart from his brothers, from Deuteronomy 33, speaking of Joseph. And it also says, about him being set apart from his brothers, or separated from his brothers in Genesis 49, speaking of Joseph. So, and then many out of the crowd, when they heard this declaration, said, Truly, this is the prophet. And some said, This is the Christ. Others said, No, for surely the Christ does not come out of Galilee, which was written of it being of Judea, because they took over the land. Does the scroll not say that the Christ comes out of the seed of David, from the villages of Bethlehem, where David was? Up in Galilee, that's in the north. It's obviously Bethlehem, Ephratah, not that one in the south that was built after David was born. Because look, if he was from the village of Bethlehem where David was, so division arose among the crowd on account of him. Remember Micah 5, and they will strike the judge of Israel with the scepter on the cheek. But you, Bethlehem of Ephratah, being least among the thousands, the Manasseh, first one to come out of you, will come for me, one to become ruler in Israel. That judge of Israel, the one that's the judge of Israel that will get striked with a scepter on the cheek. Jesus speaking to him on John 16, concerning righteousness, because I am going away to my Father, and you will behold me no more. Remember what we read in Hosea 6 too, about them going away and up there? So, and concerning judgment, because the ruler of this world has been condemned, that judge is going to be struck on the cheek, killed. Plus the Deuteronomy prophecy. Jesus knows these things. I have many things to say to you, but you are not able to bear them just now. But when that one comes, the Spirit of truth, he will guide you into all truth, for he will not speak from his own initiative, but whatever things he hears, he will speak, and he will announce to you things coming. He will glorify me, for he will receive from what is mine, he will announce it to you. All things, whatever the Father possesses, are mine. On account of this, I said he receives from what is mine, and he will announce it to you. Colossians 1:27, to whom God wished to make known what are the riches of the glory of the mystery among the nations, which is Christ among you, the hope of glory. See, I know why the translator, he put it as among you, because from the church's teaching, Christ and the Holy Spirit living inside you, like their spirit, like their actual being in you, whereas Christ Jesus is actually up in heaven. So, but in truth, it should be Christ in you, the hope of glory, because he's that hope of Israel. It's speaking about that child in you ready to be birthed, to whom God did not want to make known. So here we go, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Remember, Jesus said, out of my belly will flow living waters. The throne glorious and high from the beginning is the place of our sanctuary. And we read verses 2 about Yahweh again choosing the temple. But Yahweh, Mikvah Israel, that's hope of Israel. The hope of glory, so the mystery, Christ in you, the hope of glory. All who forsake you will be ashamed. Those who depart from me will be written in the ground, because they have forsaken Yahweh, the fountain of living waters. They don't listen to his foundations he laid in the Old Testament. How could they know these truths? How could they receive him? Remember Matthew 23, you won't see me until you say, exalted is the one coming in the name of the Lord. You know, in that name of Yahweh. So, O Yahweh, all our iniquities testify against us. Jeremiah 14:7. Act for your namesake, for our rebellions are many. We have sinned against you. O Mikvah Israel, that's that hope of Israel again. Her Savior in a time of trouble. What time of trouble? That's the time of Jacob's trouble. Why should you be like a foreigner in the land and like a wayfaring man turning aside to stay for a night? Why should you be like a man who is astonished? He's going to be killed, like a mighty man unable to save because he's dead. Although you, Yahweh, are in the midst of us and we are called by your name, do not leave us. Prophecy says he will leave. So that living waters out of his belly, the hope of Israel, that's that mystery Christ in you. That time of trouble. So ask now and see whether a man can give birth to children. This is Jeremiah 30, verse 6. Why do you see every strong man with his hand on his loins, like a woman giving birth, and all faces turn to paler? Alas, for the day is too terrible to have another like it. It is the time of Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it. See that, Yahweh? Why should you be like a man unable to be saved? You know, astonished. And hear about astonishment in Jeremiah when they're, destroying, Judah in like chapter 19 of Jeremiah. For it will come to pass in that day, declares Yahweh Sabaoth, that I will break his yoke from your neck, and I will tear off your stripes, and foreigners will no longer enslave him, but they will serve Yahweh their Elohim, and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. Now remember that resurrection passage, Hosea 6:1, come let us return to Yahweh, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has struck, but he will bind us. Remember, Jesus got lifted up and carried to heaven. The Ephraim, though, he's going to fly up to heaven. And it's just like we're reading here too. So why should you be like a man who is astonished, a mighty man unable to save? Although you, Yahweh, are in the midst of us, his temple, sanctuary. By your name, do not leave us. But he is leaving. That's not Jeremiah 14. Because look, if you read Jeremiah 49:17 through 22, I'm just going to skim through it, but the Jordan swells up. But I will suddenly make him run away from her, who is a chosen man. I can appoint over the pasturage, who is like me, who will summon me, and who is that shepherd who will stand before me. And look, as you will see, he will come up and fly like the eagle and spread his wings. And what's funny about the eagle and the spreading the wings, you just go back to 48, Jeremiah. Mourn for him, all you around him, all you who know his name. Say, how the strong staff is broken, the beautiful rod. Now, if you go to Micah, which we've been studying from, and about, the one to come, and it says, Micah 6:9, Yahweh's voice cries out to the cities, and those of true stability will regard your name. Hear the staff and him who appointed it. And you see about that staff being broken, and that's a death, and then he's gonna, in verse 40, Yahweh, as you'll see, he will fly like an eagle and spread his wings over Moab. That's the same thing as, after he runs away, and they're like, oh, why don't leave us? He runs away. He flies with his eagle wings. Just like it says, Ephraim will fly like a bird, or Hosea 9:11, the glory of Ephraim will fly away like a bird. So he's that burnt offering. But Jeremiah 50:40 through 44, he returns that same stuff, speaking of Edom and Sodom and Gomorrah, and no man remaining there. He's going to raise up many kings from the remote parts of the earth. As you'll see, he'll come from the north. See, just like that, Genesis 28, you see Yahweh at the top of the ladder, and then the messengers ascending and descending before him. It's those two witnesses. And it mentions in that same Genesis 28 passage how they're going to be spread out. Israel will be in the north, south, east, west. And so, the four corners, the remote ends of parts of the earth, you could say. And that's going to be that gathering when he returns. And as you'll see, he will come like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan, just like the other one, the swelling of the Jordan in chapter 49. But I will make them run suddenly from it. Yeah, from him. He initially runs away, flies away, and he returns. This is that 1,260 days later, that woman with the child inside. And who is a chosen man I can appoint over her, and who is like me, and who can summon me, and who is that ruler who will stand before me? Matthew 24, Jesus is asked to tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your magisterial presence in the completion of the eon? He's telling you about a later date. But the one having endured until the end will be preserved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the inhabited world with a view to a testimony to all nations. Then the end will come, when therefore you will see the abomination of desolation. And you see that testimony too. It's that coming king, the son of Jesus. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken through the agency of the prophet Daniel standing in the dedicated place, so yeah, he's gonna be killed because Daniel speaks of an anointed one coming, and he's gonna be set up and killed. This is that fortress sanctuary. He's gonna be murdered. Because you keep reading, he even lets you in on more about it. And if those days were not cut short, all flesh would not be saved but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anybody will say to you, look, here is Christ, or there, do not believe it. Because look, he's going to go up, fly away after that abomination of desolation happens. He's leaving. He won't be here for 1,260 days. Do not believe, for pseudo-Christ and pseudo-prophets will be raised up. Those fake ones coming. Remember about the image of the beast video? I spoke about it. That image coming down. It's going to be like something descending on their fake death resurrection. Could even be a fake image of Jesus saying, oh, this is my son. Or it's going to be some grand deception like that, where an image will come down on a dead person who's going to be resurrected, but he won't fly like Ephraim. Because Jesus tells you the sign of Ephraim. See, now I told you ahead of time, so if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, do not go, or look in the private rooms, do not believe it. For just as lightning comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so also will be the magisterial presence of the Son of Man. Remember, he's going to fly away like a bird. Because you got that Deuteronomy, the death, and then the resurrection, from the yoked oxen to the wild oxen, the more majestic, powerful ones, and be eagle wings. So for wherever there might be a carcass, that abomination of desolation from Daniel, spoken of, there the eagle will be assembled. Look it up. So the eagle will be assembled, but immediately after the tribulation of those days. But and then the sign of the Son of Man will blaze in the sky. That's him flying through there. And all the tribes of the land will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and immense glory. And this is a later date though, and he will authorize his messengers, those two witnesses, with the loud sounding trumpet, and they will gather together the chosen out of the four winds from the extremities of the skies as far as the ends of them, like we've seen in that chapter 51, or 50, of Jeremiah, about them running away when he comes back. And it's also the same thing. The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus, Revelation 19 tells you. In Revelation 1, be watchful. He comes with the clouds. Every eye will see him, and those who pierced him. All the tribes of the land will wail over him. That's the one who is, who was, and who is coming from God, who is, who was, and who is coming. The Almighty, like it says down here. Because this is a little preference of it. Because John's standing before the throne, and then he hears a voice behind him in the Lord's day, which is that Ephraim, who was dead, who is living, and who is coming, because he was flying up there with wings. Psalm 68, let Elohim rise up, let his enemies be scattered. Let those who hate him flee before him. Just like we've been reading, he's going to run, but then they're going to flee when he comes back. As smoke is driven about, drive them about. As wax melts before fire, let the lawless perish at the presence of Elohim. But let the righteous be glad, let them rejoice before Elohim. Yes, let them rejoice exceedingly. Sing to Elohim, sing praises to his name. Extol him who rides on the heavens by his name Yah, and rejoice in his presence. He rides in the heavens because he's flying with his wings, that sign of the Son of Man. He's going to fly and dart like lightning. Nahum 2:4. A lot of translations put they, but it should be saying he in Nahum 2:4, because when you read verse 1, it mentions he who scatters. It's the chosen man. So a father to the fatherless, a judge of widows is Elohim, in his appointed place of habitation. Remember Exodus 15:3, I believe it is, talks about him being in his habitation. As a mighty warrior too, Exodus 15:2, Yah is my strength and song. He has also become my salvation. He is my El, and I will prepare him a habitation. The Elohim of my father, I will exalt him. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. So his appointed place of habitation. So now, this is a good one to read. You can pause it if you want to read the whole thing. But kings of armies fled, and because they're gonna be scattered. When Shaddai scattered kings in it, it was like snow in Salmon. The mountain of Bashan is the mountain of Elohim. The mountain of Bashan is a mountain of peaks. Why, you mountain of peaks, do you gaze with envy at the mountain Elohim desires for his residence? And remember, if you watched my last video, I spoke about those two mountains, one being Jesus and the other one Ephraim from in Zechariah. I think it was chapter 6. But Yahweh will indeed inhabit it in perpetuity. He's always going to be in this. That's going to be his temple from now on. That Ephraim, the one you're going to see raised up with eagle wings. The chariots of Elohim are twice 20 thousands of thousands. Adonai has come from Sinai into his sanctuary. You have gone up high. And this, you can actually read this like tens of thousands and thousands of thousands. It's another Ephraim and Manasseh reference. So it's a clear reference to 10,000s of thousands, and so you see that reference in 10,000s and the thousands of thousands. It's just like another reference with that Deuteronomy 33, the 10,000s of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh, and just like other parables we've seen in this video that I've shown. So it's letting you know that the two, and that the Ephraim, the second one to come, is that one that's going to be flying. So you have gone up on high, you have led captives in procession, and he is going to fly up to heaven too, just like the prophecies say. You have received gift from men, yes, from rebellious as well, so that Yah Elohim might tabernacle here. Revelation 21:3, and I heard a loud voice out of heaven, saying, See now, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will tabernacle with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more, neither sorrow nor wailing, nor distress will be any more, for his former things have come to an end. And the one sitting on the throne said, See now, I make all things new. That tabernacle of God and God being with you there, because he's his habitation, his appointed place of habitation. From the foundation of this book, that the Ephraim would be greater and he would come. So, exalted be Adonai day by day. He loads us with benefits, El of our salvation. Selah, our El is the El of salvation. And to Yahweh Adonai belong the means of escape from death. But Elohim will wound the head of his enemies, the hairy scalp of him who walks on his trespasses. Remember Psalm 110? The voice of Yahweh says to my Lord, he's saying it to Jesus, Sit at my right hand, which is his throne, until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. And it says he'll crush the heads of enemies, and speaking of the other one, so. And Adonai said, I will bring you back. Okay, so. But yeah, just read this whole one, it's pretty good. So, sing to Elohim, you kingdoms of the earth, sing praises to Adonai, Selah, to him who rides on the highest heavens of old. Listen, look, he comes on the clouds, all eyes will see him. He sends out his voice, a mighty voice. Ascribe to Elohim, his excellence is over Israel, his strength is in the clouds, he comes in the clouds. Elohim from his sanctuary is the El of Israel, who gives strength and mighty power to his people. Exalted be Elohim.